What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. It is your lucky day. You just have the two of us here today doing a solo episode, catching up with what's going on at T5 Insurance with LAF Advisors. And the Shawn Fitzgerald is joining us today, folks. So here he is. Shawn, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Steven. How's upstate? It's raining over here. What's happening over there by you?
Let's see. What's
snowing? You got a blizzard?
This end of January. We got some sleet coming in. I want you to
Nice.
know I came just to the office to do this episode today. I was in my cozies in the morning, working from home, getting some stuff done. I said I got to get in there and get this done with Shawn.
It would have meant more if you came to Long Island to do the episode, you know?
Yep, that's a little bit of a drive there for that.
Yeah,
but we will make that happen, and I think sooner than later. We do have something in the works there, so that's exciting. Hopefully we're getting together soon.
I honestly, I think if we were closer together, in a sense of how far we live from each other, we probably would have conjoined agencies already.
Oh, here we go.
Just being honest.
That's right. Well, how's everything going with LAF, Shawn? Talk to us about what's going on there.
Dude, everything's going really well. Like, staying super busy. I'm trying to. The busier I'm getting as a business owner, which you and I have spoken about, Steven, like, it's such a different day to day than being a producer, right? Like, there's so much more on your plate. I feel like you're dealing with so many different things and wearing so many different hats. So I'm really trying to get better at time management and time blocking. Again, very basic things we always talk about, right? But, you know, it's something I still like. I talked with my producer the other day, Ryan, and I told him, I said, listen, man, between 2 and 3 o'clock, every day we're in the office, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 to 3, we're prospecting at that time. We're not doing anything else. If somebody calls, push it off. Unless it's obviously someone's house is on fire. It's something like major. We'll push it off until that 3 o'clock time comes. But I think it's really important to do more of that because, I get caught up in the, email comes in. I feel like what separates me from other agencies is I do respond really quick and I get back to people right away, and people love that. But I think some people are okay if I just wait an hour and get back to them. Like, it's not the end of the world. So I just feel like I have to do a better job of that time blocking, and that's something I've really been focusing on and trying to do. Like, even like when you and I meet, we've been time blocking it further in advance. I've been blocking out time for prospecting, blocking out time to hop on Billy Williams' training portal and try to navigate that system. So those are all the little things I've really been working on. But before I even go to the next thing, were you gonna hop in and say something about that?
I'm curious. Well, first off, I want to say to anybody listening to that thinks they have solved the time blocking mystery, reach out to us and we'll have you on the podcast and talk about that, because I think that's something that you can always constantly refine, and it's very easy to refine and then maybe get into a good routine of the time blocking and fall back off the tracks very easily, even day to day, right? So do you think that that's something that you have found success in the past and fallen back off the tracks, or has it always been kind of a struggle for you and now different as an agency owner? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so when I was a producer, I didn't really do it as much. But now that, being an agency owner from 2020 is when I opened, I started implementing it early on, but not as much as I should. You know what I mean? And now it's getting to the point where I have a lot of different, I'm a member of, I'm on the board of the Big I as well. So there's a lot of different things I'm involved with where I have to block out time to do a Zoom call. I have to block out time to do, my video proposals. I've been leveraging Calendly a lot and leaning on that a lot because it just saves so much time having to go back and forth with, does this time work? No. Does this time? What about this day? What about this time? And what's great about it, too, is it automatically blocks it out on your calendar when they pick the time and date. So it's probably something I could have been more consistent with, but now I feel like I'm starting to get in a good groove with it. And, yeah, that's it. What about you with the time blocking? I know you're trying to do it a lot, too.
Yeah. So here's one thing I think that I've found success in with time blocking. And let me start by saying I have not found success in time blocking in general, because to your point right now, especially no VA, no producer, it's just me. There's things I have to get done, right?
Totally.
But I think I found success in noticing when I'm most productive. So for me, Shawn and I are similar in that sense. We're most productive in the morning. I was joking before we started recording, but it's true. Yesterday, we spoke insurance back and forth to each other, texted back and forth for 17 hours. We were talking at 4:30 in the morning, and then still texting, bouncing stuff off of each other at 10 o'clock at night. And I
Might
think
have been a
that
little
right
unhealthy.
yeah, right. And the Red Bulls and the coffee in between as well were probably the unhealthy part. But I think for me, I recognize that the early hours are where I can focus in and get it done. I feel I have the motivation. I feel that I wake up early, go to the gym, get back from the gym and ready for the day and have that kick to get going is when I hit my task list. Because if there's anything that I've struggled with from coming as a producer to an agency owner, it's doing the simple tasks that I don't want to do. Checking the bank account, making sure things are paid, following up on changes, all that stuff that the producers don't want to do. It's exactly the same here, right? And so I know that if I can focus on getting my Hawks Off list done in the morning, then I can focus on the things that I like to do that'll already be self-motivated, if that makes sense. There's no real extra push to time block that. So I've had good success with at least time blocking that, but at the same time you get into the things that here at agency owners you don't anticipate, like somebody getting into your checking account and pulling money out slowly that I just experienced. So there's an example. I had somebody that got into my business checking account and were pulling out small deposits, and I started to notice them, and that was 2 Mondays ago. That took most of the day on the phone with the bankers trying to figure that out. So, when you have that big account that you want to quote and close, but when there's someone in the back end pulling money out of your checking account, there's something that you have to stop and figure out as an agency owner, right? I mean, that's just one.
Yeah,
one of many
can't really time block for a hack.
No, I don't think you can. But Shawn, why don't you dive into kind of what's up at LAF with the producer? I mean, we haven't really talked about that. You got your You got your first producer. You brought him on. I know just from talking to you that things have changed for you. I think it's and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think these are important things to touch on. I think it's been holding you more accountable to the different things that you have to do.
Definitely.
Getting you, in the office when you were working more remote and stuff. So maybe getting you more on a schedule. Touch on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been an awesome experience so far. The person that I brought on, his name is Ryan. Awesome guy. We have a lot in common. He's hungry. He's motivated. He wants to learn. He doesn't have an insurance background. So, it is a lot of hands-on training, and that's why I wanted us to be in the office a couple times a week at a minimum. The way I learned is hearing other people on the phone and how they dealt with customers and whatnot. You and I have spoken about that before, Stephen, and I think I don't think that's the only way you can learn insurance, but I think it's a very important part, and I think it can fast track you in your insurance career. He stopped me several times, like after I got off a call with the customer, and he's like, "Oh man, I really like how you worded that. Like, why did you say this? Why did you say that?" And those little back and forth conversations could not happen if we were virtual. So I feel like there is a very important part of being in the office. Plus, on top of being in the office, we feed off each other's energy. When we block out the time to cold call, we're both cold calling and getting each other excited. Oh, I just booked an appointment. And then I'm like, damn, I want to book an appointment. And, we're kind of going back and forth, and it's actually a very fun atmosphere to be in. But yeah, anyway, I got connected with him through the Big I, and, we spoke about several different things. I was really just trying to help him in the beginning, and then he wound up coming on board with LAF. And, my goal with him is, I think it's a little bit different for everybody, right? But with him specifically, if everything works out, my goal with him is to eventually have him get to a path of equity in LAF as a whole, not just his book. And again, this probably all ties back into, what happened at my last agency and how I left there and what I wouldn't want to see for somebody else. So I'm trying to make it a point to do the right thing with him. Probably take it a little overboard sometimes. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? There's probably things that I'm spending too much time on because I want to make sure he does it right, and I want to make sure it's, what's best for him. So it's funny. I actually heard, I think I forgot if it was Scott or somebody was talking about it recently, where they basically said, I think because what happened to me in the past makes me overcompensate for trying to do for this employee. You know what I mean? So like I'm trying to not go overboard and kill myself, to make sure he succeeds, but do the right thing and try to make sure he can do the best he can do. And man, we have a good dynamic so far. And like I said, working in the office together is awesome. It is definitely more of a leadership role, trying to keep him hungry and motivated. And I am lucky in the sense, like, I don't think he needs much of it. Like, he comes in, he's always hungry and motivated. He's always asking lots of questions, which, I joke with him all the time. Like, dude, don't feel funny. Call me, text me whenever. Like, I'd rather you be asking me a lot of questions than not asking me questions at all. So it's definitely been an experience. It's been an awesome experience. I've enjoyed it. It's taken I'm going to be honest, taken a ton of time, away from what I was normally doing. But I love it. And I'm seeing him start to succeed. He's written a bunch of policies, and now he's starting to book some commercial appointments, and he's getting a little into commercial as well. And I could see him getting excited, which gets me excited, and it's awesome. So that's kind of where we're at with it. My long-term goal is to just my goal with him initially is to make sure he has enough money to pay for all his expenses. You all know how it is out there when you're a producer or a scratch agent. The first couple of years are the toughest. So I'm doing a lot. He's bringing in his own leads, but I'm also, if I get stuff, I'm pushing a lot of stuff to him as well because, I want to make sure he hits the ground running. You know what I mean?
Few things there.
Yeah.
Takeaways from what you said. One, talking about over I don't know how you word it, being maybe overzealous when it comes to bringing him on and the things because of your prior experience.
Yes.
That reminds me of the last episode with Dr. Billy Williams we talked about, and it's my favorite saying, and I'll say it almost every episode, I'm sure, on this podcast, but it's not why did something happen to you, what was it trying to teach you? And whatever those experiences were from your past life, let's call it, has taught you how to be the best leader for this new producer. So I think that's important to point out. And always keep in the back of your head with any situation, especially the situations that you face in a scratch agency journey. The second thing I want to touch on there is, and we don't need to get into the specifics at all, but just because I know the whole thing, this opportunity that has worked out so well for you would not have happened if it wasn't for connections that you made for yourself. And we talk a lot about the connections and the networking side and just whatever it is and the relationships in this business. And if it wasn't for the relationships that you had from the party that introduced you to this individual, it wouldn't have been a thing. So I think that's important to point out.
Totally. Yeah, and I don't know the right way. I feel like I didn't do the best job of explaining the whole producer thing in the sense that, like, what happened at my previous agency. Like, I don't know if I explained it so well, but basically it's in the sense, like, I don't want to stress myself out to the point where I, like, completely burn myself out because I want to make sure he succeeds, if that makes sense. Like, does that make more sense? Like, I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, man, I want him to succeed so much that I stress the crap out of myself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's I feel like that's a better way to explain it.
Yeah, I think there's a great line with that you got to be careful of which side of that you're going on. Right.
Totally.
For your own self.
Yeah.
But the experiences that you've had in the past are making you what that kid's success is at this point.
Definitely.
Already. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I think that's important.
Yeah, so I think right now, it's him. I have our virtual employee as well, Anna, which we got through Agency VA, and she's awesome. She helps with a lot of the back end stuff. But I would say our next hire is probably going to be we're definitely going to need an account manager. I'm thinking maybe the end of the year, but we got to see how the year goes. Probably sometime November, December, I'll be looking for that next person to really help out with the servicing side of things.
Virtual account manager?
Maybe. Probably a hybrid. Maybe a hybrid model, coming to the office once or twice a week, that type of thing. What about you? What do you got going on?
Sounds like things are moving and shaking down there in the island, baby.
They are, man. It's a lot of fun. There's so many. You and I talk about it all the time, Steven. There's so many different things to look out for as an agency owner. You got the employees, the technology, the vision of where you want the company to go, the type of offer you're trying to bring to clients, the sales process, the email template. Like, it just goes on and on and on and on. So, yeah, I think you and I have done a good job of holding each other accountable. And on top of that, which we just started doing recently, is really making a list. Like, hey, these are the 6 things we want to tackle by the next time we talk with each other next week. Like, I feel like that's been a good thing with our relationship, is we kind of hold each other accountable. Like you with the Google reviews. Like, I wasn't even thinking about Google reviews, and then you hit me up and you're like, you're going to get to 100 in the next 6 weeks. I'm like, am I? And, it just became a thing. And now I already talked to Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, you got to get more Google reviews, and make sure they, say your name in them as well. So it reflects on the page and whatnot. So
listen, we all know
push each other, which is good.
Listen, we're going to tell everybody listening right now what happens if T5 gets to 100 before LAF.
Nah. We don't have to go through all that.
Oh boy. No, I think that's exactly it. One of the things I guess I would say I'm struggling with right now is trusting the process. It's so hard.
What do you mean by that?
I got the vision, and I got the I have the direction. I know the direction. I know the road I want to take, and I know the stops along the way.
Yeah.
But I'm only 7 months in, and I still got to just put my head down and do, I want to invest in this. I want to bring this on. I want to add this process. I want to do this and that. But it's an interesting feeling. I've more recently have put my head up to kind of see where I'm at, and it's been an interesting feeling because I've said it before, but the last 7 months have felt like 7 years, and that's just the truth. It's crazy to think that's only been 7 months. But the vision of like, all right, what's next, and trying to draw that out. Everybody has that point A and everybody has that point B, but unless you're not reverse engineering those points from B back to A, point B looks way far away. But if you have those stops along the way, it makes it seem more doable, seem more realistic that you can get to those different things. So I think that's one of my biggest struggles right now. Is just like, all right, Steven, you're here, and it's only been 7 months. Just give yourself a chance. You can do this. You can do that.
Yeah.
But understanding where you are and trusting the process would, if that makes sense, would be kind of the biggest.
Yeah,
struggle.
It does. No, it does, and it's.
That comes from, just to maybe clarify more. It basically just comes from me being extremely impatient. I want to be at that point. I want to hire that first person. I want to have that team. The different things that I know that I can do, but I gotta trust the process. I gotta wait it.
Yeah.
I gotta let different things happen first. I gotta let get to that 1 year mark, get to that 18-month mark, let things develop, and take it step by step.
Definitely, and I think I think other agency owners would agree with me here. It's like the vision for your agency changes as time goes on. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I think that's like an important part to think about too. But what are you working on now? You got some good accounts you're working on. What do you think when your first hire is going to be? You have that pictured out yet, or?
Yeah, definitely not until my renewals hit. That's what I've been focusing on, right? So, I think I really decided my first hire is going to be a VA, which is just so different than what I originally thought of when I started the agency. And I mean, that's what you say about, you just said that things change. I came, and I've talked about my story a little bit on here, but I came from an old legacy family business, and the idea of having a virtual assistant in the previous agency would be nuts. It wouldn't even be a thought. So it's just the way I've done business, the way I'm operating the business is completely the opposite of my past life, if we can call it that. And so that's been one of the most exciting things. But yeah, I think that would make sense. I'm thinking maybe the end of the summer, get a couple months of the renewals under me, and continue to grow. But I mean, we're moving and shaking. Got a lot of good opportunities coming, and just talking about time blocking. My focus now is just, no matter how many quote inputs I get or how many opportunities are thrown my way, is to stay consistent on the little things that have gotten me this far. Yeah. Right. Like the community involvement. Going to the business after hours at the chamber every month. Even if I could go home and work all night, like still staying out, still writing those thank you notes, still asking for the Google reviews, still posting regularly on social media, still doing the videos. That maybe I had more time when I was just getting started, or had more time when I was a producer, or whatever that is. Because those little things are what's going to keep that pipeline full. And again, that's coming from Stephen Turnbull. That's so far has built the business of just referral marketing, right? So I think that's So I mean, that would be the plan, and then bringing that VA on would really be, offloading some of that service stuff. I don't think at this point it makes sense to have anything that's client facing. It would probably just be a back end. I think how you use your VA.
Yep.
And just that would be that's kind of the next step when I talk about that journey from point A to point B. The first rest stop on the drive is definitely getting that VA and allowing me to focus more on production.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the only way you can do this thing, right? Like, I feel like that's what keeps me sane is, all right, just focus on the next task. Don't focus on the end goal right away. You know what I mean? Obviously, you want to know what the end goal is, but you want to mainly focus on just what that next task is. Knock it out, move on to the next one. Knock it out, move on to the next one. Because, yeah, it can get overwhelming pretty quickly when you start looking at, like, how many things you actually have to get done. The website and all these other little landing pages you want to do and new blogs, and it's endless. What did Billy say last week? 180 different ways to market, I think he said.
Yep.
Like, I heard that and got instant anxiety.
But at the same time, when we talk about time blocking and consistency, pick the one or two things in that sense that you're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Totally. Just pick the one or two things that you're going to be able to do to start with, and you can't chase the whole thing at once. And I've learned that kind of the hard way. Yeah.
So what's the carrier? Let's talk a little bit about the carriers. So, the carriers in our agency right now, because these solo episodes, I like that we're doing a little update on our agency. From the carrier side, since we last spoke, have you got any new carriers or built any better relationships with any of the carriers that you have?
Yeah, and I think I've shared this on the podcast before, but I know that I'm pretty lucky with the carriers that I got and the relationships that I did have. Right now I think I have 10 direct appointments.
Nice.
Good mix of personal, commercial, a few that are good that both do like small to medium size commercial as well as personal together.
Good.
So your Utica Nationals, Travelers. Utica National was a recent one. I got, of course, the Travelers, Progressives. And then we're lucky. We're lucky in New York to have a really good mix of regional carriers.
Yeah, regional carriers are great up here.
So I got New York Central Mutual, the Dryden Mutuals of the world, the leather stockings that'll do the small stuff. And, those are the carriers that I enjoy working with. It's easier to get the underwriting manager on the phone and have a conversation about a risk, and explain the situation, and they understand it. And then they get to know you, and they understand that you're not going to bring them bad business, and you really develop the relationship. And of course, there's the national carriers that we all know and love. But that's why we're independent, right? It gives us a good option, gives us choices.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you have to have a couple of those. Like, I agree with you in the sense that we're lucky that we have the good relationship with the regional carriers that we have. But then we have, a handful of national carriers that are there to fill the gap where the regional carriers won't do the work, So, yeah, I think it's a good mix of both. And we're definitely lucky to have the prior relationships from our prior agency. I think that's a big thing,
Shawn, why don't you talk about, I know a push you're making at least this week that we talked about your maybe the change in your marketing style.
Yeah, so I would, I guess we could call it a change. It is a change. It's an add-on. So my marketing
change,
yeah, for sure. So a big thing I do for prospecting is I do cold calling. I have a few referral partners, stuff from BNI accountants, lenders, real estate agents, credit card processing people. So I have a few business referral partners. I get a bunch of referrals from the relationships I've had the last, 10, 11 years in the industry. But something I want to really focus more on is building more of that local community presence. And that's something I haven't done the best at. Even though I'm in a BNI, it's not really a local thing where I'm like building in the community that I live. So I am looking, and this is what's great about, Steven and I talking with each other is because, Steven has some strengths where I'm really weak, and I have some strengths where Steve's a little weak, and it's just like a great combination. So Steve is, you guys seen Steven's posts and, his involvement in the community. I just asked Steven, I said, hey, what would be like a couple of good, community things to get involved with, like the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club and things of that nature, things that give back to the community, and you just get to, I was in a Lions Club like years ago, And I remember I learned so much about the community. But then when I opened up my own business, I was just, running a million miles an hour. COVID just hit, so I kind of laid back on that. And a lot of those groups were shut down for a while. So now that I'm getting in a better groove, I want to stay consistent and get involved more with the community. So I joined the New York State Restaurant Association because we have a niche in the hospitality space. And they meet in Manhattan, which is only about an hour from where I live. The Rotary Club, they have one in Bayshore, which is my hometown. So I'll be able to get involved more in the community there. I'm in a BNI group, which I've been in for a couple of years now. That's been great. And then the last and final thing I'll probably do is the Chamber of Commerce just to get more of that local business community vibe. And you could tell me more about Rotary, Stephen, but it seems like they give back a lot. They do a lot of charity things and a lot of fundraisers and stuff like that. And I think there's something to giving that I definitely don't do enough of, and I want to get involved more with,
So here's what I'll say on that, and I think if I've said this before on the show, I apologize, but I really look at my community involvement in 3 silos, and the way that I've developed those 3 silos are by getting myself involved in pretty much when I started in 2016 in the business. I infused myself in as many possible events, groups, networking opportunities, coffee meetings, happy hours, whatever it was I possibly could. And then I would say a few months go by, and then I kind of sat back and said, okay, what's really sticking here as far as what's Stephen really enjoying, what's benefiting Stephen personally and professionally, and kind of look at it that way. So I'll never forget. 2 days. So I started in my family agency 2 days after graduation in 2016, and 2 days after I started, I went to a speed networking event at the local chamber. I didn't even know how to spell insurance at this time. And I had to get up and give a 3-minute presentation on our business, what we offer, and how we're different. I'm like, well, this is going to be fun. And I'll never forget it because it was probably the hottest day we've had in July. It must have been 95 degrees, and I had to be a big businessman that I was and wear my big suit, and I was sweating my ass off. And but I can honestly stop and remember the people that I met at that event and tie back relationships that I still have today. So, fast forward to today, I'm on the board of the chamber. I was the young professional chair of the chamber for 2 years, and I've kind of gone through that phase of making those relationships. But getting back to what I was saying, I look at my community involvement, if you will, in 3 different silos. I have the chamber, my BNI group, and the Rotary Club. So the chamber, I just kind of explained my story there. And I think out of the chamber, it's a good, just feel good, get involved in the business community. They do an excellent job. Our chamber is very active. There's a monthly meetup. They have different networking things. But it's more or less, hey, I'm the insurance guy. If you need anything, let me know. Here's where we are. Happy to talk, happy to help with you, whatever.
Is there other insurance guys in that group? I'm just curious.
Yep. Okay. Yep. There are. And I think the chamber is more, to my point of saying this, I think the chamber is more everybody get together in the business community and let's support each other type thing, right?
Gotcha.
And that's why I explain it as here's who I am. If I can ever help you, let me know.
Yeah, gotcha.
And after a couple of years, when I was the chair of this young professional group, I went back and I was sitting in there one day and I had an epiphany that I'm like, wow, here's why I'm at there, because I'm sitting at this boardroom table, and I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, this is the last place I want to be at 6 o'clock right now. I've had a hell of a day. I'm exhausted. I want to be here. And I'm looking around the room, and I said, well, I insure them. I insure her parents. I insure her grandparents. I insure him. I insure her. And I was like, okay, and that's the long-term play. Yeah. Anyways, then I look at my Business Networking International group that I co-founded with a couple of people here in Utica. We brought the chapter to the area about 5 years ago. And Shawn's in BNI, and they're great as long as the group works. And I think it depends. People have their opinions about BNI, and I've heard all of them, but I think it really depends on the group of people that you have, and the chemistry that you can form with the different members. But that for me is very intentional. I can go there and say, I'm looking to get in front of this business owner who knows Mr. Smith. And I'll never forget it. I had a restaurant here locally 2 years ago, and I got up and said, I want an introduction to this person. Does anybody know him? And 3 people in that BNI group reached out to him that day. I went in to have lunch the next week, and he came up to me and was like, what are you doing? Everybody's saying I got to talk to you, like breaking chops and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he had an existing relationship, but there's still things that him and I have done together. We did a fundraising event at his place in any way. So I think BNI is more specific for that. And then I'll land my plane here, but the Rotary Club is more just a feel-good thing. So, I mean, personally, I grew up around the Rotary Club. My grandfather was a member for 50 years. My father was a past president. And then I was president of the club last year.
Yeah.
And so that's more of a volunteering. The most recent thing that we've done is Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Has a chapter here in Utica where they build beds for children who do not have beds. So we had a Rotary get-together. We had 38 people got together, built some beds. And so, that's more of a feel-good thing. But at the same time, with the hustle and bustle of starting a scratch agency, it's really a good escape, right? It's kind of like, okay, I'm not here to shake hands with everybody. But at the end of the day, you can still look around, and there's still people in that room that are your clients or are becoming your clients or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's how I've looked at my community involvement in kind of those three separate pillars.
I like it. And it all comes back to this really being a relationship game.
And I think that just helps with your brand.
Totally.
Like we could talk about that all day long because I love talking about that stuff. But posting out there like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like T5 Insurance is doing this, and we're doing that in the community. Like it just shows. Like here's another reason why we're different than Geico.
Yep.
We're
Couldn't
in your
agree with you more on
that. And that's like Billy says, 180 different ways to market. That's just one of those ways.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm trying to broaden the ways that I market. So Steven, a lot of the people you and I speak with, they have the 1 to 2 ways, just like Billy said. They have the 1 to 2 ways they're a master at, and they only do that. I'm doing the 1 to 2 things, but I'm also trying to bridge out of that a little bit more just to try to diversify myself a little bit more in that sense. Plus, I don't mind networking. I've been doing it for a few years now. I enjoy it. You meet a ton of people. You get to learn a lot about other people's businesses and stuff. So it helps your business grow. It's just like a win-win situation, I feel like. So if I could just add that on to what I'm already doing, I just feel like it's a home run. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's absolutely right. Anything else you want to add, Shawn, before we wrap this puppy up? I think we wanted to do a quick little episode, but both of our mouths just got running here. And once we talk about branding and networking,
that's how we do it in New York, right? We just keep going.
That's right. Well, no, that's you. That's you downstate people. That's you downstate people.
Is it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's not the upstate people.
All right, I'll take it. But that's all I got, man. I think the moral of the story is figure out a way to build relationships and have an accountability partner, right? Those are like the 2 main things we touched on.
Yep, absolutely. And I'd finish up with just saying it's okay to stop and see where you've gone, right? I'll just touch on this real quick, but I had an opportunity to buy a book of business here locally, and I went through the process. I made an offer. If you told me a year ago, January of 2022, that I'd be owning my own agency, and then I put an offer in on a book of business that I was really close to getting. It just came down to a financial thing. I would have thought you were crazy. And I say that because I called Shawn, and I talked a lot about it, and I bounced some things off him for the offer, and he said, "Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, blah blah blah." And I said, "Yeah, well, I'm giving myself 20 minutes to pout about it, and we're moving on to the next one." And that's exactly that. But I think it's important to stop and realize where you've come, where you are, especially if you're just solo grinding and growing what you want to grow. Take the time to give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back, and then not too long, and then keep moving.
And I keep over, I don't do a good job at that. That's another thing I got to add
neither
to my
do
list.
Neither do I. And it took that that kind of experience to open that up. But
for sure,
everybody, we greatly appreciate you listening. We greatly appreciate the journey so far with this podcast. It's been a blast. We've met a ton of great people in the industry. Reach out to us. We've had a good amount of people reach out to us and just say, "Hey, love what you're doing." So reach out to us and connect. And we got some more exciting stuff coming on that. But that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Again, do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. See ya.
Thank you so much for listening or watching that episode of the Scratch Agency podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it. We hope to see you next time. If you have any questions, you could reach out to myself or Steven on Instagram or LinkedIn, and we'll see you next week.